Let me welcome our first guest, Her Excellency Ayesha Rekhi, who is the Ambassador of Canada in the Czech Republic. Miss Ambassador, let me pass you the floor.
Thank you very much. And friends, bonjour, hello, Dobry den from Canada House here in Prague. I am really delighted to be with you today, and I hope that wherever you are, and it's really wonderful to see my screen lit up with mostly strong women dressed in red, wherever you are, that you, your loved ones, your colleagues are healthy and well, because I know it's a difficult time. I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to open this conference, focusing on a topic that rightfully is attracting more and more attention. It's an issue rooted in the values of human rights and equality, values which my country and I personally am committed to. Canada prides itself on its diversity. Inclusion, including a clear focus on gender equality, is at the heart of our national and foreign policy priorities. For Canada, diversity is a source of creativity, resilience, and strength. It's part of our history and part of our success story. So as a government and as a country, we believe that inclusion, diversity, equality are all vital for democracy, prosperity, and peace. We have plenty of work to do and lessons to learn, but the commitment is there. I was asked if I could share a bit of my own story with you. So my parents immigrated to Canada for the freedom to marry and to build a life together. Their Canadian journey was not always an easy one. When they arrived in Toronto in the 1970s, the struggle for women's rights and equality was well underway, and racism in those early days made for a tough start. But within a generation, my parents have seen their daughter, me, become a Canadian ambassador. And that is a very Canadian story. I was lucky to have parents who supported me, encouraged me to dream big dreams. And similarly, my spouse and my children who are with me here in Prague have been by my side in a career that has meant both personal challenges, but also exciting opportunities for them. I would not be an ambassador without the support of and the sacrifices by those closest to me. And yet, when I started my foreign service career some 20 years ago, I did not think that being an ambassador was even a possibility. They say that you cannot be what you cannot see, and I did not see people like me, women of color, mothers of school-aged children doing this job. Today, I am proud that I join an unprecedented number of Canadian ambassadors who are women, experienced, talented diplomats who happen to be women. A young woman diplomat can now see what is possible, and seeing women in leadership positions in government or business or any other sector means girls see role models, but so do our boys. In 2021, the evidence is clear. The most successful organizations in the world recognize that diversity and inclusion spur innovation, increase productivity, create healthy, respectful workplaces. None of us can move forward if half of us are held back. And so discussions like this one underscore the critical role that all of us play in achieving equality. But having diversity, having women in the room, doesn't always mean that inclusion is a reality. Inclusion is a choice that requires leaders to change systems and processes. It requires partnership with and action by men and boys, not just women and girls. Achieving gender equality requires transforming unequal power relations and challenging social norms and gender stereotypes that limit opportunities for women and girls, but also restrict men and boys to specific roles. We need to see women in leadership. We need to see men caring for children. I saw my mother working outside of the home. I saw my father cooking us dinner. I saw them making decisions together. My own children see their mother representing their country. They see their parents sharing work at home. Seeing is believing. When I speak about these issues, I often mention a McKinsey report called Why Diversity Matters, which makes the link between diverse leadership and improved decision-making and competitive advantage. Their findings were that companies with both ethnic and gender diversity are more likely to have higher financial returns, make more money. The business case is clear. Diverse skills and abilities, diverse perspectives and networks are key to finding innovative, durable solutions. They are key to success. Inclusive policies are how we leverage diversity for success. Inclusive policies mean making a decision to respect diversity, to empower individuals and groups by respecting rights. It means providing equitable access to services and fostering active participation in decision-making. To actively remove barriers to diverse women's leadership can mean anything from changing the start time of a meeting that coincides with getting children ready for school, which can make all the difference to allowing a working mother to join a meeting, to establishing mentoring and leadership programs that provide exposure and growth opportunities for women. I have learned that our individual actions as leaders, the work that we do to hear and value different perspectives, to change work processes, to recognize different work styles and experiences, that all of this matters. Getting diverse women in the room, supporting seats for diverse women at decision-making tables is important. But what happens next, what happens in the room, is just as important. We have been living through an unprecedented experience, and 1 year in, it is clear that the pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on women, in particular racialized women and women with disabilities, who have been among the hardest hit in many of our societies. Job losses have hit women in particular ways. High-risk jobs that don't allow for physical distancing and these measures that keep us safe, but are at the forefront of the fight against COVID-19, are disproportionately done by women. In most countries, including in Canada, women are shouldering the burden of the pandemic in their work as health and care providers. And mothers have had to take on more responsibilities around the house. Homeschooling and more care work mean more unpaid work for women. The pandemic has exposed inequity in ways that cannot be ignored. Stay-at-home orders, which have been absolutely crucial for our collective health, actually meant increased risk for people experiencing domestic violence, because for far too many, home is not safe. One of the projects that our embassy has supported recently was research by 2 Czech sociologists on the impact of COVID on domestic violence here in the Czech Republic, and an effort to understand the challenges in the Czech response system. Gender-based violence is one of the issues that needs to be addressed head-on. Violence against women threatens democracy. It limits the full participation and representation of women. We can't afford economically, socially, morally to leave people behind based simply on their gender, their race, their ethnicity, their religion, their physical and mental health. As we start to think about rebuilding and recovering, we need to draw on all of the potential we have to research and innovate, and to make our countries and our communities more prosperous, more safe, more peaceful, more democratic. Diverse skills and abilities, diverse perspectives and networks, these will be essential to our collective recovery. The perspective from Canada, a country built on immigration with a feminist government, and I know for some people that word can be a scary word, but it really is just about equality of opportunity and benefits for women and men. The perspective from Canada is that inclusion leads to a more prosperous, innovative, agile, and connected country. Inclusive policies and programs allow us to unlock potential and attract more of it. It's an approach that has worked for my home country, and it works for organizations too. And as we grapple with the pandemic, it's more important than ever. On the specific topic of this conference, I want to say plainly, equal pay for equal work makes sense. The greater participation of women in the workforce has accounted for about 1/3 of Canada's economic growth over the last 40 years. 1/3. But despite this progress, the gender wage gap persists. Canadian women continue to earn less, making 88.5 cents for every dollar a man earned when measuring hourly wages for full-time workers. We have proactive pay equity legislation and pay transparency to help reduce gender wage gaps, but there is still so much work to do. It is estimated that closing the gender gap could add $150 billion to the Canadian economy in the next 10 years. Other initiatives that the government is taking include investments to increase women-owned businesses' access to the financing, talent, networks, and expertise they need to start up, scale up, and access new markets. And these efforts complement Canada's efforts on the international stage to promote women's economic empowerment in developing economies, to increase their control over livelihood and productive assets, and their access to decent work and remuneration. Equality matters. at home and around the world. We need women's voices to be heard, and we need the benefit of women's talents. When my Prime Minister announced his first cabinet in 2015, it was gender balanced. He was asked by the media why he named 15 women and 15 men. His answer, quite famous now, his answer then was brief: because it's 2015, he said. Friends, now it's 2021. It's time for equality. I am really happy that the gender equality discussion has renewed energy here, and I'm confident that our countries will continue to move forward on making this world a better, a safer place for all women and men alike. The Embassy and I will continue to support partners in government and civil society, including organizations such as Business and Professional Women, Czech Republic, the organizer of this conference, to share experiences, learn from each other, and most importantly, together to advance gender equality. I want to end with some final thoughts. And so to the men who are listening on this call, thank you. Please be allies. If you look around the table and only see people who look like you, please take action to diversify those voices. Support the women in your lives, whether at home or in the workplace. And to the women in our virtual conference room, please bring your authentic selves to the table. Take the risk to blaze the trail, and don't forget to hold the door open for the women coming behind you. And in these times of COVID, when many of you, men and women, are tired, when you, like me, are participating from home with your children studying in the room next door, when you're trying to make things work at home and at work, take care of yourselves, because our organizations, our societies, we need you. So I thank you for your attention. I wish your conference every success. Stay safe and be well. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Rekhi. I guess that Jan, if we can, Jan has a question.
Yes, I have a question. You mentioned that the starter of the change happened during one generation. What was the starting point?
So thanks so much for the question. And when I talk about the starting point for me, I think, you know, I often come back to family, as I did. I talked about my parents taking the risk to immigrate to a new country, but doing it frankly out of love because they wanted to be together. When I think about the role models in my life, they're of course my parents, my mother and my father, because I think that's important. But also the women, you know, my grandmother, my mother's mother, was an activist. She organized peace meetings in pre-independence India for Gandhi. I was surrounded, my godmother is a leader and feminist filmmaker. I've been surrounded by women who inspired me and supported me to take risks, and men and women who reminded me all along that really no dream was too big. So, you know, it takes hard work. I mean, I think the reality is anybody on this call knows that there are obstacles and difficulties. It's not always easy, but I think with those kinds of support, family, mentors, role models out in the world, it becomes possible. So, I mean, for me, when you ask how it started, it really started with family. And I'm grateful for parents who really just encouraged me every step of the way.
Thank you very much. And the last question, you can have, let's say, outside perspective to the Czech Republic society, and you can see all the stuff which going on here. So my question is, what would be your advice to the Czech women?
So I would say I've been in Czech Republic now for about a year and a half, and I have been struck by the incredible leadership of women. And I should say, you know, when I talk about leadership, I'm not talking necessarily about the CEO or the ambassador. I'm talking about leadership at all levels, because I really do believe that whether you are just starting out in a career, or a young woman in university, or you're the head of a company, there are opportunities all the way up the ladder to exercise leadership and to be a role model. So I've really been struck by the women I've met in all sectors, whether it's government, in academia, in the diplomatic service, in companies, that they are just extraordinarily talented, passionate, leading in spite of some of the challenges. And yes, there are challenges in Czech Republic and there are challenges in Canada too. And this is why I think initiatives like this one, initiatives like the one you're having today, this discussion, these 7 days of inspiration are happening all around the world. And they'll keep happening until we get to the point where we actually have true equality and equity. So, I mean, my advice to Czech women would be to continue to do what you're doing. If you don't have the support, to find that support. I think there are lots of us, and I include myself in that group, who are here to stand with you, support you, speak up for you if that's necessary. So there's plenty of support, but I think actually in a key point, and I'll return to a point that I made at the end of my speech, because I think it's particularly true for women, and I've seen a few women on the line with children who are popping onto their lap and then popping off, is that the juggling of home and work is exhausting. So that the need to take care of yourselves and taking a pause is okay, because somebody said to me quite recently, this, you know, that the struggle for equality, for rights, it's a bit of a marathon. So we have to make sure that the race, because we're doing that not just for ourselves, but for the generation that's coming up behind us.
Thank you for your words, Mrs. Ambassador.
Mrs. Ambassador Ayesha Rekhi, Ambassador of Canada in the Czech Republic. Thank you so much. Thank you.